The many public buildings were constant reminders of the glory of Roman civilization.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the kingdoms, empires, nations, and cultures that in one form or another have had massive ripple effects over history.
Well, let's just look back. China's transformative reform and opening up policy was launched on the 18th of December in 1978.
Number 10, France.
Vous venez d'où, Monte-Carlo?
Non, de Marseille. Je suis resté samedi et dimanche à Monte-Carlo, fallait que je voie un type. Lundi, j'ai essayé de t'appeler de Marseille.
Lundi et dimanche, t'es pas à Paris. New York Herald Tribune!
Je t'en prends un.
This Western European country has, relative to its small size, carved out one of the world's most impressive resumes. Over the many centuries of its existence, France has played an integral part in global geopolitics, establishing its colonial empire in the 16th century and sowing its seeds the world over. Although its grip loosened considerably after the reign of Napoleon Bonaparte in the early 19th century, France has continued to maintain an outsized reputation through decimation of its culture.
Two paintings from 1870s France, a dramatic historical scene honored as one of the greatest works of its time, and something quite different, an everyday harbor view at sunrise by Claude Monet that would become one of the most important works of all time.
Consider its contributions to art, like 19th century Impressionistic painting, or even the later French New Wave films of the mid-20th century. France's introduction of Gothic architecture, among so much more, is just another example of its important historical role.
Notre Dame is what's called Gothic architecture, and what that really means is that the architects made a huge departure. Rather than building buildings that were made out of big rocks piled one on top of each other, what they did is they went very high, but they also made the walls very thin. And that was to bring more glass into the walls, to make them more elegant.
Number 9, Japan.
6 times a year, these giants battle each other for top placement in Japan's most beloved traditional sport, sumo. Highly ritualized, this sport dates back more than 1,000 years, originating as a rite of the Shinto religion. Matches are a true window into an earlier era.
It's impossible to argue that this East Asian island nation took several major hits during World War II, subject to the only ever use of nuclear weapons in armed conflict. But before and after, Japan has long stood out as an international symbol of progress and advancement. One of the world's great powers, Japan has long been an innovator in the worlds of science and technology.
Yuki takes the high-speed train to his hometown in Osaka every month. For him, late trains are unimaginable.
If the train were 30 minutes late, everyone would panic. But that is unthinkable.
The country pioneered digital audio recording, high-speed rail transport, and several military firsts, like the world's original aircraft carrier. Beyond that, its soft power goes nearly unmatched by any other nation, with its visual and culinary cultures some of the most popular on the planet.
I think almost all modern chefs are impressed by Japanese presentation, the importance of contrasting textures, colors, and portion size. Embodying all these traits is Japan's best-known contribution to world cuisine, sushi.
Number 8, Germany. Speaking of the Second World War, Germany's deterioration into outright fascism has been and will continue to be studied for generations. Even its post-war activities saw significant societal change and upheaval, with the rise and fall of the Berlin Wall emerging as one of the most important events of the 20th century. Some of the world's most important religious movements find their origins in what's now Germany, with Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation emerging as perhaps the most recognizable.
Luther knew he had a far-reaching social reform movement behind him, and that enabled him to act the way he did in Worms. In the towns, he had the support of the middle class, the intellectual elite associated with the humanists, as well as, to a degree, the backing of the imperial knights, and a portion of the clergy supported him too.
The country also boasts history's greatest musical minds, from classic composers such as Bach, Beethoven, and Handel, to modern-day icons like Kraftwerk. Germany can also count among its people's achievements the invention of the cathode ray tube, bicycle, first working space rocket, and, oh yeah, the work of Albert Einstein.
What is time? A deceptively simple question, yet it is the key to understanding relativity. It is also the reason my hair is going gray.
Number 7. Russia.
On November 3rd, 1957, the Russian dog Laika becomes the first living creature to orbit the Earth. Scientists place the animal in Sputnik 2, attach recording devices to measure heartbeat and breathing, and then launch capsule and passenger.
It stands to reason that the world's largest country by geographical size would have played a major role in history. In terms of contributions to science and technology, Russia stands tall and is largely unrivaled save for a few peers. During the 20th century, the US and the former Soviet Union were locked in a tense Cold War, one furiously racing the other for space travel supremacy.
After jettisoning the nose-fairing and last stage of the carrier rocket, the Sputnik started circling the Earth in a pre-calculated orbit. Science and technology had made a major breakthrough. They had laid the road into space. Meanwhile, Soviet scientists were already preparing to launch a second artificial Earth satellite.
While Americans made the crucial step of placing a man on the moon, Soviets invented the re-entry capsule, spacesuit, and Soyuz rocket. Most significantly of all, human spaceflight was first achieved by cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin.
On the 12th of April, the Soviet Union orbited a spaceship, the Vostok, around the Earth with a man on board. The astronaut is a Soviet citizen, pilot Major Gagarin Yuri Alexeyevich.
Number 6. United Kingdom.
It's hard to think of a period in history where you had so much creativity in terms of technology, so much willing to experiment with the possibilities of what you can do with machines, what you can do with engineering, what you can do with architecture.
Consisting of England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, this constitutional monarch currently enjoys great influence on the global stage. Historically, though, the British Empire reigned almost totally unchallenged as the world's #1 superpower for centuries. Although its commitment to colonialism has faced negative re-evaluation over time, it was once the biggest empire in history, controlling massive swaths of Asia, Africa, and the Americas.
The strength of empire is conquest and credit.
You can't understand the history of the British Empire without understanding Britain's central role in slavery.
The British were a bunch of warmongers. The empire is based on money and based on violence, on the ability to kind of employ large numbers of troops to fight. Empire, in a sense, is a career. It's a line of work for a large section of Britain's elite.
The UK also benefited tremendously from its capacity for innovation, with 19th century inventions like the steamship and telegraph helping to maintain its dominance. Perhaps above all, the UK's greatest contribution may be the world's most commonly spoken language, English.
The English that Churchill speaks is based on an old Indo-European dialect. It is a vigorous, rich and flexible language, quick to make use of new words from other languages. The English language has borrowed thousands of its 500,000 words from all over the world, and it is understood in almost every part of it.
Number 5. China.
Well, the Great Wall was a linking up of walls that had existed previously. A number of states in the north of China had built walls partly to defend against one another, but more importantly, to defend their northern frontier.
From one of the cradles of civilization to one of the world's most formidable rising powers, China has had a long, complex, and highly influential history. Long before its ascent to becoming the world's largest manufacturer and exporter, China was instrumental in shaping the modern world through the introduction of its 4 great inventions. Those consisted of the compass, gunpowder, papermaking, and printing, which drastically accelerated human potential for communication, navigation, and more.
There's a strong contrast between the development of gunpowder weapons in China and in Europe. They're developed in China first, and they certainly become effective weapons of war very quickly. It's all rubbish about the Chinese just using gunpowder for fireworks.
China also established the vital Silk Road trading routes, which paved the way for centuries of economic and cultural development. Although it has often come under international scrutiny for its perceived lack of democracy, the 21st century seems to have big things in store for China.
40 years ago, China's GDP hovered around only $150 billion annually. Nearly 20 years later, in 1997, it broke through the $1 trillion ceiling, and by last year, GDP had grown to over $12 trillion.
Number 4. India.
One of the most important things that zero gave rise to was the ability for the common person to be able to do mathematics. Before we had an idea of zero, calculations were done on an abacus. It was hard to record what was happening, and it meant that mathematics was in the power of the authorities, those who could do maths.
Another potential superpower on the horizon, the South Asian country stands as the most populous country on Earth, dethroning previous record holder China in 2023. Throughout history, India has supplied some of the world's most prominent and influential schools of religious thought, like Buddhism and Hinduism.
Gautama Siddhartha was the son of Suddhodana, the ruler of Kapilavastu in present-day Uttar Pradesh in India. He was born nearby in a grove of sal trees in Lumbini, which is in present-day Nepal.
India is also one of the foremost innovators in mathematics, contributing such bedrocks as algebra, negative numbers, the decimal system, and the concept of the number zero. Culturally, India's Bollywood, a portmanteau of Bombay and Hollywood, has seen a massive surge in prominence in recent decades, owing to the increased presence of the Indian diaspora around the world. Number 3. United States. What can we say about the world's only remaining superpower that hasn't already been said? The overwhelming cultural strength of the United States of America has largely been attributed to its multiculturalism and diversity, serving as perhaps the world's largest melting pot. As tallied in 2023, 136 of the world's 500 largest companies are headquartered in the U.S., and the U.S. dollar is the most reliable reserve currency on Earth.
So it's 100 years, 80 years, 100 years of dollar strength. So much so that important commodities, gold, oil, are denominated in dollars. Dollars are part of the payment system. When countries talk to each other, they represent their GDP and various figures in dollars. I think undoing that will take a long, long time.
It's a world leader in science and tech, innovating at the highest levels in several fields, including electronics, pharmaceuticals, and more. We hardly even need to address American film, music, literature, and more. It could be argued that the culture of the United States is perhaps its most powerful export.
We have no secrets from our readers, Mr. Bernstein. Mr. Thatcher is one of our most devoted readers. He knows what's wrong with every copy of the Enquirer since I took over. Read the cable.
Girls delightful in Cuba, stop. Could send you prose poems about scenery, but don't feel right spending your money. Stop. There is no war in Cuba. Signed, Wheeler. Any answer?
Yes, dear Wheeler, you provide the prose poems. I'll provide the war.
Number 2. Persian Empire.
In 539, Cyrus conquered Babylon, but he did not present himself as a conqueror. He presented himself as a liberator, rescuing these people from their despotic ruler. And then he did a totally unprecedented thing. He freed the Jews. The Jews had been living in Babylon in captivity ever since Nebuchadnezzar destroyed Jerusalem and their temple.
We're throwing it way back with this one. As established in Iran by Cyrus the Great in 550 BC, we have the Persian or Achaemenid Empire to thank for several of the basic tenets of everyday life. Before the Roman and British empires, Cyrus's Persian Empire became the biggest of its kind in history to that point.
The empire over which Cyrus ruled was the largest the ancient world had ever seen, and may be to this day the largest empire ever.
Among their myriad accomplishments, the Achaemenids pioneered the idea of government as we know it, complex road systems, and an early postal system. In what was perceived as a radical idea at the time, Cyrus treated all of his subjects with religious tolerance, allowing them to freely practice their beliefs without persecution. Hey, he wasn't called the Great for nothing.
Cyrus was a very innovative builder, and I might add that his standards were particularly high. We can also say that his building project reflected in some ways the technologies that he found in the course of his various conquests.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. Ancient Rome. We can't mention the Roman Empire without giving a shout-out to classical Greek culture, which proved to be hugely important in making ancient Rome the powerhouse that it was. To put it simply, the Roman Empire is largely responsible for Western civilization and culture, even thousands of years after it fell. The late antiquity jurist Martianus Capella is credited with establishing the liberal arts, and thinkers as diverse as Seneca the Young and Marcus Aurelius are still widely read today. They even gave us the Julian calendar, which developed over time into the Western calendar. Its scientific contributions included the sophisticated Roman aqueducts, as well as the first permanent bridges. We literally couldn't have done it without them. Which nation do you think has the biggest influence on history? Are there any that we missed? Be sure to let us know in the comments below.
The Roman genius for engineering made possible aqueducts, which carried water from great distances.